Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Let's Inspire. I am Dom, your host, and today here with us we have a dear friend of mine. He's an excellent tumbler and a great dancer, great performer. I had the pleasure to work with him in Cats, the musical, last year, working for El Caribbean. Please welcome Joshua Donald.
Hello.
Hello, darling.
Ciao, bello.
Ciao, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God. Okay, let's get right into it. Why don't you tell us about a little bit about yourself? Give us a little backstory of your training and talk about your career.
My favorite subject. So my backstory is I'm from England. I'm from just outside London in Surrey. I started out in gymnastics. So I did gymnastics for 10 years for Great Britain. I did sports acrobatic gymnastics. So I did that from the age of 9 until 19. I was quite successful in that. So I was at like British championships and European and world championships, and ended with being 5-time world champion, European and world champion in the end, which was good. And then
great, it's amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. And then from that, I obviously knew that I enjoyed performing because the gymnastics I did had dance element to it, and we would do shows, and I knew it was something I enjoyed doing. And I'd started doing that alongside college work and things like that. So I knew that's where I wanted to go. And auditioned for dance schools as like a university degree, and that's what kind of led me that way going into from gymnastics. So I knew I had to do more dance. I needed to get more ballet because I hadn't trained like classically in that sense. So I started doing ballet on the only day off I had, because I did gymnastics 6 days a week and then twice before school. So I literally had like a Wednesday evening after school and a Sunday afternoon. It was like the only time I had spare in the week. So I would go and do ballet straight in those times and get my qualification. So I did RAD ballet and then auditioned for 4 of, essentially the best dance schools in Europe or the world. It depends on your opinion, but in more of a contemporary ballet route. And that's what I wanted to kind of train in, which is more of a classical training. So you do ballet, contemporary, and you'd have like contemporary techniques like Limone and Graham Cunningham. It was very heavy in terms of choreography, as opposed to like the singing jazz tap. So I didn't train in that sense. And graduated from there after I went to Laban, which was not my first choice. But which was a good indicator of what was to come. You don't always get what you want. So I was fortunate to get into 3 of the 4 schools I auditioned for. And probably that was really the first kind of taste of not getting something, if I'm honest, that I had at that point. Because a lot of my gymnastics was like, you worked really hard for something, and I was fortunate enough that I did get the titles I wanted. So yeah, it was the first real kind of like rejection in terms of like a job or in that world that I'd had. So that was a real eye-opener. Went to Laban, was totally out of my comfort zone, was not what I expected at all. It was very creative, very choreography based, and I was with some very weird and wonderful people, which was just not what I expected as like a little 18-year-old that had come from gymnastics, like, ooh, I just want to dance. And then auditioned for jobs and various roles, and here we are now, present day.
Is there a specific moment where you decided, I want to be a performer, I want to be an artist?
Yeah, I remember doing gymnastics, and it was like the Christmas displays as well, when the schedule for us would come down. Like we'd have our final competition of the year in like November, and then we would train through, but Christmas was always a bit lighter. Like we would do less kind of competition stuff. Training was more fun, where you could learn new things, and the Christmas display was a big thing in our at our gym. And that's when we would get a choreographer in who was actually worked in a really big dance school in London and was one of the original Mistos in the Cats tour. so he would come and teach us like a routine that he'd created, and it was when it was really fun, and that's where like it really divided the group, because like a lot of my like teammates were like, this is awful, I hated that part of it, and I like loved it and wanted to, you know, I'm like, I'll be Jesus and Jesus Christ Superstar and all the rest of it. So that's when I knew I enjoyed that, and obviously I got close with him, and he was like, oh, you should really like think about doing this long term if you enjoy it. And it's when I was fortunate enough to, you know, have a lot of people around me like explain that it was a path that you could take. It wasn't like you could only do, you know, go and train and be a lawyer and all this, that there was a path for it, and I was supported to go down it. So I remember that vividly, that I was like, I want to do this. Yeah, that was like the biggest point when I was like, yeah, let's run with this. Unfortunately, I'm not very academic, so it somewhat worked out. Maybe it chose me.
This is a question that when I was creating this little project came up to my mind like right away, because I thought if somebody was going to interview me, I would have loved to answer this question. Is there a show or a contract that you have close to your heart that has like a special meaning for you?
Oh yeah, God, I suppose each one does in a way for a different reason. One of the biggest is probably the first job I did, and from graduating, I graduated from like a contemporary world from Laban, and there isn't a lot of support in that world. There's no agent, there's no showcase at the end of the year for agents to come and see, and so you are kind of just thrown into the world and auditioning, and it was really hard because at that time people weren't leaving, and I graduated in a time when like ballet and contemporary really fused properly. So Royal Ballet dancers were suddenly like doing floor work. So people that had trained in like really classical, beautiful dancing suddenly could do contemporary as well. And it like really changed the game, because it meant they were up against us in auditions when really we knew how to like be a bit more fluid and relaxed and, you know, have all these like amazing techniques we'd learned, when they could actually do it. And the facility of a ballet dancer is obviously just incredible. So the only jobs you could really get were apprenticeships, and they weren't paying, and that was really the theme of the time, and no one was leaving jobs for jobs to become available. And you know, the in-between is like a Matthew Bourne, where he was, you know, that real dance theatre where it's like a bit of contemporary and a bit of musical, like all kind of in the middle. And it's, you know, he has a sea of people, so like getting in and auditioning is hard, and getting it is even harder. So I had a year where I like worked for free and did a lot of it, like apprenticeships and workshops, and going to do work experience with dance companies to try and be seen, and like Matthew Bourne going to do company class, and you know, it's a long struggle. And then a friend of mine emailed me and said, well, you should apply for this job. And it was actually just being a dancer in an opera, which was never like, I never thought that was a possibility as like a job. I went to the audition and got it, and it was amazing. And actually it was the first like professional work I'd done and was paid, and it was in a huge theatre, and my mum and dad came to see it, and it was amazing. Like, it's very dear to me because it was the first show that my dad saw, and my parents both saw me do professionally, and the last because my dad died 6 months after that contract. So that was like really big, because I'm like, he went knowing that I'd like made it and the mushroom at the back, but I mean he was proud nonetheless. So yeah, that's probably the most sacred, because it was like the first, and I kind of don't like, I felt like I was like, oh, I'm on the road now. If only I knew it wasn't necessarily all plain sailing from there, but it was a start. Well, I always remember saying I can now be like, I did it, when I could never work again, but I was like, I was a professional dancer.
You know, we always like talk about the amazing things that we do when we perform, or the people that we meet, the places we go, like on a tour or like on a ship, like we did for Cats. But on the other side of the medal, obviously, there are also a lot of hard things. I don't want to say negative, but like challenging moments and challenging things. What was the most challenging moment throughout your career, and how did you like came out of it?
I don't know if there's ever like one thing, to be honest. Like, Corona right now is probably one of the most challenging things I've had to face. You know, suddenly feeling like you've made it a bit and you've got things lined up and you've had like a running streak of work, which is like the dream, you know, as a freelancer to go kind of back to back in jobs is like the dream. So to have that and things lined up and it all be taken away from something that's so out of your control, I mean, it kind of leaves you in a position of like, well, what can I do? Like, it's not about going to class or singing. Like, this is, and everyone's in the same position. So probably, to be honest, Corona's been the most. Other than that, the industry is not easy. Like, there's so many challenges. Like, going to auditions that you want desperately and you get to the end, like Royal is one of the hardest because it's all so concentrated in 1 week. Whereas with things for town or tours, you know, they're normally spread over about a month or 6 weeks. So you have time in between to like focus and process and digest everything. Whereas Royal is literally just like Monday to Friday and it's like draining. So, you know, I've gone to Royal auditions and got to the end on the final day and sung and then been cut and told no. And you're like, so close. And then to pick yourself back up from that is hard. So that's like a continual struggle, I would say, that you have to face. But my mum always said at the beginning of this, she was like, you have the day that it happens to be upset and then the next day you have to move on. And I'm so grateful for that, because since starting this like that, I really stuck to it. You can like sob your way home crying, but the next day, like it's done. Like there's another audition somewhere and it just wasn't meant to be. And I do believe that. So yeah, they're probably my two.
Okay. Well, my last question for you is, what would you say to the younger generation of performers to inspire and motivate them to invest not only their time, but their energy into the arts?
Don't do it.
Right. Amazing.
Go and be a doctor or a lawyer or something that is better paid and easier. Anything on a contract that rolls over, don't do it. No, I would say like buckle up. Like it's not for the faint-hearted, and there's going to be a lot of rejection. Like, you know, for every yes there's probably 10 no's, and you just have to get a thick skin to it. It's not personal. And there's so many elements to it. And actually, I've spoken to friends now that have been on the other side and like assist in auditions, and they say it's so beneficial because you see what goes in, like how the wheels turn. And, you know, you go in and you may do amazing and you sing that song and you're like, I'm so right for this, or I've done it before, I'm going to get it. And you don't get it and you're like, why, like how? And there's so many other elements of other people and what you've got to mix with and who you could be working with and who they worked with before. And so many times, like, it's out of your control. So the best thing is just go in and do what you can and give it your all, and then leave and just be done with it. So just don't take things too personally, but work hard. Like, really analyze what's your weakness and what's your strength, and really know that. Like, I really wish Laban had said that to us. Like, find out what your niche is. Like, what can you do really well that others can't? And like, for me, it was tumbling, and no one really explained that. And like, because Laban was like so against the gymnastics, I really left it behind. It wasn't until I started auditioning for more musicals that people were like, oh, can anyone trick? And it's like, oh my God, are you joking? And now that's like what I, like 90%, like 90% of the work I get, I have to do some kind of trick. And I'm like, oh God, had I known that like 10 years ago, I probably would have been doing it a lot quicker. Now I'm like hogging this hog body over and trying to do a somersault, because it has a shelf life. So yeah, work out what your niche is and run with it. And then don't just be one-sided. Like, work out what your weakness is and work on it. Like, don't just do the things you like doing. Like, I wasn't trained in singing, so it's always come second, but that's the one time I get to the end of a round and I sing and I don't get it. And it's like, you can't keep coming up against the same brick wall and wondering why you didn't get it. So yeah, work out what your niche is, what your weakness is, and work both equally, and then run with that. And research the shows. Like, know your craft, know your industry. Don't just be like, I want to be a dancer. Like, know where you want to be. Like, know the shows you're right for, what you want to do, and have the things ready for those things. You can pull anything out of the bag for that one show and give that your all. Don't, you know, because it gets expensive. You know, there's auditions that are all over the world, and you can't just be flying everywhere. You know, I have to read a breakdown now, and at the beginning I would have gone to anything, and now I read things and like really understand the brief, and I'm like, is this right for me? I don't, you know, just because I want to work in a job. Like, if the show's not right, don't put your energy, because you probably won't get it. Yeah, so just know where you fit wear your pigeonholes and run with it, but then no, don't be too restricted.
Find a good
to the things that are more open.
Always find a good balance.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just swings and roundabouts with it. Like don't be too strict. Like know the ones that are great, but then be open-minded. Like I've done things I never thought, like the opera. I've done TV shows. I've done a film. I've done body doubling, and they're not things I ever thought I would do. I'm not trained in those, but they have transferable skills, and be open to that. But for the things that you want to do, and the dream show, know why it's your dream show, and like run with that. So yeah, and all your dreams will come true.
That's actually one of the best advice that I've heard so far. That's really to the point, straight to the point.
From the bottom of my chilly little heart, I found that there.
And I would know because we're friends.
Exactly.
Also, side note, we are matching and we did not talk to each other about having a
We can communicate with just a look.
But that's the beauty of it. Like you go out, you put yourself out, and then you meet like so many different people along your journey, and then
oh my god, so many people.
Some of them stay for good, and
some won't go away.
Anyway, thank you so much for being with us today, Josh.
Thank you for having me. This virtual.
And to everyone watching this video, please comment and share it so more people can get inspired. You can follow Josh on his Instagram and Facebook and all his social media.
And I won't accept.
And I will see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.
Ciao.